Good evening. Having established quorum, I would like to call this January 24th, 2019 meeting of the Reston Association Board of Directors to order. In terms of quorum, one of us you don't see, Kathy Baum, Director Kathy Baum, is on the telephone tonight. So Kathy, make sure if I get going too fast and I don't see your hand, which I probably won't, that you will just make a quick shout and I will slow down to make sure I recognize you. So thank you for that in advance. We do expect Director Hebert and Director Iyer to come in kind of mid-flight, and also Director Carr to probably come in closer to 7 o'clock. Director Ganesan has sent his regrets this evening. There's Director Iyer. Hello, Ben. We just got kicked off. So a few opening comments. Thank you, Ben. A few opening comments from me. First, a formal welcome to our new CEO, Hank Lynch, to his first Reston Association Board of Directors meeting. Welcome, Hank. And
thank you. Glad to be here.
And it was so funny, just a few minutes ago, I was like, oh, Hank, you've been to several now, right? No, Andy, it's still January, and I started on the 2nd. It's like, oh, yeah, it's kind of like dog years here at Reston Association, so it felt like 7 years already.
It's been a pleasure so far, so thank you.
Lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, I would also like to mention that due to a family emergency, I had to go out of town Monday through this afternoon this week. So I had to miss the Planning Commission meeting last night, so I want to just formally thank Larry Butler and John Mooney and Sherry Hebert and the entire team for their leadership last night at the Planning Commission with advocating RA's points of view at that session. So Sherry, John, Larry, and the entire team, thank you so much for representing RA so well last evening. And we'll talk more about that with a specific agenda item on that topic later in tonight's meeting. Also, we had to postpone our Friends of Reston Association Board of Directors work session that was supposed to take place earlier this week. I'll be working with Hank and Katie Shaw and Carolyn Horniak to try and get that set for a date in February, just so everyone knows. Also, something exciting about February, as everyone knows, so we've talked about the Central Services Facility. We've finished the renovations on that building at the end of 2018, and I asked Hank and Larry if we might be able to, and our council, if we might be able to host a board of directors meeting there to kind of showcase the work that went into that facility. So we're looking to try and have the February 21st board of directors meeting held at the Central Services Facility. Still some things to work through with internet connectivity and uplinks and stuff, but the team is working on that. So I'm looking forward to having and showcasing that building and the wonderful men and women who work there.
So we're working hard to make it happen.
Thank you, Hank. All right, so with that, let's see. So also just a couple administrivia things. The filing deadline for candidates to the RA board election is tomorrow, Friday, January 25th, 2019. So if you're thinking of running for the board, now would really be the time. Even if you're a procrastinator, now would be the time to get on that because the filing deadline is tomorrow. Finally, on a little bit more sobering note, just wanted to pass along again the information on former President David Babzine's memorial service. It will be held Friday, February 8th at St. John Newman's Catholic Church. The family will be receiving friends and guests from 10 to 11, and then a memorial mass will follow. So if you can make that and show our respects for David and all the wonderful, celebrating a wonderful life. It would be great to have a full house. All right. With that, if there's nothing else burning from any of the board members, I'd like to move on to agenda item B to approve our tonight's agenda.
So move.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? With that, let's call the question. All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay.
Aye.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, and so we have an agenda. Now we'll move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar currently shows our minutes from both the December 13th board meeting and our January 2nd work session. It has the Covenants Administration Resolution 12 update for the inspection process, and it also has the Litter Working Group Pilot Project, the single-use plastic waste program. So, John, I don't know if you're trying to pull something off the agenda. Okay.
Mr. President, I request that item C1 be removed from the consent agenda and placed where perhaps a new item E or wherever you choose, just to tighten up the wording in the December 13th board minutes.
Can we do that as a C prime? As soon as we do the consent calendar, we'll jump right do that, and then before we get to
That's
member
fine.
comments? Okay, so C prime will be the minutes. So all we're pulling off, I think, is the minutes to the December 13, 2018 board meeting. Everything else can stay on? Yes? Okay. With that, yeah,
I move to approve the remaining part of the consent calendar.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, so we have a consent calendar passed. So let's go to C prime and the minutes for the December 13th, 2018 board meeting. And there was a small edit that, John, you wanted to put in.
Mr. President, my concern was in the description of what we did. It's J, item J on the December 13th, in the December 13th minutes. And basically, so that is, whoops, I'm in the wrong place here. So the,
I'll say it. Currently, it states, move to A, stay enforcement of boat violations effective as of March 22nd, 2018, until the final report of the Lakes, Docks, and Boats Working Group is presented and accepted. B, to have staff proceed with enforcement action on violations related to boat conditions and non-payment of boat fees. And I think you wanted to tighten up A.
correct.
So how was the
correct.
wording?
So I have refound my place. So in part A of that motion that was approved, I believe the board definitely intended to clarify, well, let me put it this way. The present wording, stay enforcement of boat violations, is too broad, because clearly we wanted to
The B.
to do B. So my suggestion is that instead of the wording stay enforcement of boat violations, we say stay enforcement of boat violations other than those enumerated in Part B of this motion. That was the sense of the board discussion as I recalled it. And that this is important. It's not a minor point, because there's a lot of disagreement about that in the community.
And that is, in
And
my
I-
recollection, that's exactly what was the intent. So
I would
to
agree.
stay enforcement of boat violations, except for in the case of conditions when they're unsafe or if they've not been paid. So I believe that's exactly what the intent was.
So, Mr. President, I would move that amendment.
I would second it.
Would there be any other edits? I didn't see any. Okay, so how about, we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
And the
And
other
second.
minutes also. So I should, so,
I think I tried to just only pull off the December 13th
Okay.
minutes, if that's possible. And so, let's call the question. All those in favor of the minutes as amended, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed, any opposed, please say nay. Okay, thank you. And I thank you for that clarity, because I think that is much, it was the intent, and now it reads for our intent. attend, so thank you for that. All right, so if we keep this rocking and rolling, we're going to get over to item D, which is member comments, and we have no member comments. We have lots of lovely members and no member comments. All right, this is, oh, wait, we've got a hand up. Sure, we've got no one signed up, so if you'd like to come and speak, come to the podium. Make sure the microphone is green, I think it is. If you could state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. So
Okay.
thank you so much for coming in.
My name is Tom O'Karen. I live at 2030 Lakewinds Drive on one of the lakes in Reston. The reason I'm here tonight is I'm planning to run for the board for the at-large seat, and thought I'd just give you a pretty face to go with the paperwork I'm going to turn in tomorrow. I didn't necessarily procrastinate all the way to the end. I didn't realize it was happening until later, but I've got my signature, so I'm turning that in. I have lived in Reston for 28 years. My wife and I live on Lake Thoreau and been there for about 20 years. I have been involved in a number of volunteer activities, including my local HOA, the cluster, and I look at this as an opportunity to give back like you guys have been doing for the time that you're here. When you're on the boards, you do all the work. No one really gives you the attaboy other than the criticism that comes with it, and I realize that, but I hope I get the opportunity to give back because Reston is very unique. It's something that we have here that no one else does. So just want to introduce myself and say hello.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for running.
Sure, yes. Okay.
My name is John Mooney. I live at 1400 Churchill Place, and though I'm a member of the board, I'm speaking as a general member of the Reston Association, and I do so because I'm running for re-election to the board, and I'm saying this because when I went around to seek signatures to my candidacy position, people said, "Oh, everybody's saying you're not running." So I never said that, but now I'm saying the opposite. I will be running for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have someone else who'd like to speak? All right.
I'd just like to say I'm not running for election.
You'll be able to get up on the
podium, I think he said, state your name.
Hello, I can't be upstaged by my comrades here. I'm Karen Anton. I live at 11714 Dry River Court, and I am also speaking as a general member to announce that I will be running for the remaining 1 year on the Hunters Woods Dogwood Director seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, wait, okay, we've got Rob. All right. Rob, if you could state your name and address and.
Andy, I'm Rob Whitfield with the Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance, 1587 Inlet Court, Reston. First, thank you to all of those who participated last night, staff included. I can only say, I didn't realize until sometime about 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon just how much paperwork was involved. And I confess I'm still way behind finishing reading a lot of the information. So thank you both RA and thank you county staff. And I think it was a respectable, effective effort by all involved. I'm involved in transportation issues, and I know Tom's going to speak in a minute. I wanted to just bring to your attention a concern I have, and I don't know how much and when we will know. But when I started to get involved back over 10 years ago regarding the proposed Dulles Rail project, Joe Ritchie, who was then the leasing person for Reston Town Center, and I don't think I've ever told Tom this, he came one night to Chris Walker's office where I was then working and pulled out a 25-foot long strip map between Tysons and Dulles Airport. I don't know if that still exists somewhere, but the concern was that sometime in the next 20 to 30 years, the Dulles Toll Road will have to be widened between Tysons and Dulles Airport. I don't know if Tom is in a position to speak with that. The airport authority, of course, controls the toll road, but at some point, doesn't need to be tonight, I would hope that we can get a better understanding of what the airport authority started studies back in 2012, and then for some reason stopped those studies in 2013. So I think it's time, given the amount of development that's occurring in Tysons and the potential impact on the toll road, and of course the rest and the exits and entrances. So doesn't need to be handled tonight, but sometime this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. So as we do those soapstone overpasses and things, we need to make it wider. The bridge has to be longer. Go. Uh-oh, Rob's still here.
You forced me to remember something I forgot to say last night. My view of the world, and it's certainly imperfect, is with the approval of the 3 major projects near Reston Town Center Station. And I don't know whether it's 10 million square feet or what, but there's a lot of development was approved this last summer. The way I see the world is the priority has to become the town center underpass rather than the Soapstone connector. Recently, I was at a Council of Governments TPB meeting, and the county submitted a request for, I don't know if the correct word is out of turn, designation for inclusion in whatever the TPB, I think it's the 6-year plan. And the cost estimate for Soapstone Underpass has now increased to $215 million. That's a serious concern. That's a huge number. Obviously, the town center underpass, I think the last number I heard was like 250 million. And this, boy, all of this information is coming to me. I was in Richmond on Monday. Last week, the Commonwealth Transportation Board approved its latest smart scale scoring priority list. And my understanding is that out of 200 million for Northern Virginia, 184 million was for transit projects. Nothing, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen the details yet, but to the best of my knowledge, there was nothing included for Reston area. And so I don't know how we make that a priority with Richmond, but we certainly should do our best to let Richmond know that we have concerns.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you in general for all of your work on the transportation area, keeping us informed.
I need to get on board with whatever when you meet. I don't know.
All right, well, thank you. Does anyone else want to make a comment? All right, well, thank you so much. Again, we're only as good as we are informed, and so thank you for coming and speaking with us and making sure we have all the right data points to make informed decisions, so thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I don't know if you guys saw my email. I have to leave by 8 tonight. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. So if you're talking when I leave, it's not that I'm mad or I don't understand or I'm mad at what you're saying. It's just I got to go by 8. So don't take offense when I get up and leave, John, because most likely you'll be the one talking.
I'll start crying.
So
Okay, and I know we've got probably 20 minutes on the first agenda item, and then Sherry, we're going to go right into the PRC zoning one, so hopefully you'll be here for a good chunk of that.
Yep.
So with that, we're going to move on to item E and invite Tom Beshedny, the Director of Fairfax County Department of Transportation, up to the podium. Tom's going to talk to us a little bit about the Fairfax Connector bus situation with the new transit station areas coming online. And he's also going to talk to us about the additional length of the Soapstone overpass and the tunnel length because of the widening of, no, I'm just kidding about that, Rob. That was just a little joke. Sorry about that. And Tom, sorry. But welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight and giving us some updates on the connector service.
Chairman Siegel, members of the Reston Association Board, thank you very much for having me here this evening. I am Tom Beshedny. I'm the Director of Fairfax County's Department of Transportation. As an aside, both those two facilities will be designed to ensure that their proper width is done initially so that any widening will be accommodated in the future. But tonight, I'm really here to talk to you about the Fairfax Connector. Transportation in Northern Virginia and Fairfax in particular is very multifaceted. As you know, the construction of the Silver Line is progressing. They're at about 89% complete right now. They are expected to reach substantial completion later this fall, and then we'll be actually initiating Phase 2 rail service next year. So in preparation for that, we wanted to start the analysis to reconfigure the Fairfax Connector service that's here in the Reston and Herndon area to take advantage of those opportunities. And so I am joined tonight with two of our team members, Michael Felschow, who is the chief of our transit planning section, and Robin Geiger, who is our public information officer. So they may be assisting me with answering any questions at the end here.
Thank you for joining us.
But really, the purpose tonight is to introduce this effort to you and to seek some help from you in terms of getting community input and to seek your input as well. So really, the purpose of this whole effort is to enhance the bus service here in the Reston Herndon area and to capitalize on the investment, the $6 billion investment that's being made in Metro Rail, an extension of the Silver Line. We want to encourage public input, examine the existing system that's out there, see what's working, what maybe not working so well. Heard tonight that our 605 isn't really working the way people want it to work. This is going to be an opportunity to have input on what changes we should make to the service. To look at some of the future needs, growth in the area, and then to develop some recommendations. We're looking to establish some efficiencies in the routes, to institute some new routes, maybe some destinations that we haven't been serving, and then to also improve accessibility and mobility. So by way of background right now, we have 32 routes in the Reston Herndon area. There'll be a map in another slide that blows this up a little bit. And there are a variety of routes. There's not just one size fits all for this part of the county, frankly, for the whole county. So between the commuter routes that we also have 5 circulator routes, the RIB system, which I know you're very familiar with, local routes, feeder routes into the Metro Rail stations, and we have 70 buses on the street every day here in Reston, which is about a fourth of our total system of about 300 buses. So just by way of overview, we have a number of facilities that are existing right now. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Wheelie-Reston East Metro Rail Station. There are 3 new stations that are coming online, Reston Town Center, Herndon, and Innovation. All those will have kiss and ride areas. Herndon and Innovation will have park and ride lots as well. The Herndon parking structure is actually 98% complete now. So that will be actually totally complete by the spring of this year. And then there are a number of other facilities, the transit center at Reston Town Center, as well as our park and ride lots, Reston North and Reston South. The 2 new parking garages at Herndon and Innovation also will have bike rooms, just like the Wheelie Station does. So there you have the overall map. It's a little bit easier to see there. With the current coverage of the Reston Herndon area. And obviously we want the community's input on what we should be keeping from the network. If there's areas that we're not serving now, and we've heard some of that already, we want to get that input. And if there's places that the bus is going today that people don't need it to go, we want to know that as well. So that's just kind of an overview of the system. The basic footprint for this was an effort that we went through in 2016, which was called the Transit Development Plan. This is something that we update every 5 years. And in that plan, there were some recommendations for the northern part of Reston and Herndon, northern part of the county, to connect this area to other parts of the county in ways that we may not have been connected that well by transit in the past. So we're going to start with that. We have several public input sessions that are scheduled, and I'll talk about those in a minute. We definitely want the public to tell us what services are the services that they think would be most advantageous to them. We want to assess, as I said, the existing service, what's working, what's not working, recognizing that some of the trips that are taken on the connector today are going to be covered by Metro Rail in the future. From Herndon, the existing Herndon Park and ride lot to Wheelie, you'll be able to do that on Metro Rail anymore, so we don't have to run bus service back and forth anymore. So we do want to increase connectivity and frequency. We wanted to look at improving mobility, reducing congestion obviously is a key goal, improving community vitality, and then also looking at reallocating the hours of service and making sure that those match what the needs are of the community. So just looking at the timeline very briefly, we have done a lot of data collection over the last 6 months and looked at those past transit development plans and prepared for the public outreach, which has already started through our online survey. We do have 2 public meetings coming up, one on Saturday at the Lake Ann Community Center, and then one on Tuesday in Herndon. And then we're going to get everybody's input, kind of synthesize that, put together a draft plan between now and April. We'll be coming back out in the April-May timeframe to review that plan with the community, kind of truth it. Did we hear what you were trying to tell us? Are there things that are missing? Where should we make adjustments? Refine the plan, take that to the Board of Supervisors this fall, and then start preparing for implementation. So that's kind of the overall timeline. The exercise that we have coming up on Saturday and then on Tuesday night, we'll have a little bit of a charrette there about the existing service, what people are using, explain what's in the transit development plan already, and then talk about some new concepts. We do have both qualitative and quantitative analysis that are part of these. You know, there's a lot of numbers we can crunch, but what we really also need to look at is what are people doing on a regular basis, which may or may not reflect what we see in the numbers sometimes. And then as I indicated, we'll come up with a preferred recommendation and bring that back out to the community. So a couple of the things that we'll be looking at, there are trade-offs. For example, if you see on the left-hand side there, you see two roadways. The bus service is staying in red on those 2 roadways. That's kind of maximum ridership. You use your major corridors, you stay on the major corridors. But on the other hand, you could have maximum coverage, which is the green routes there, which is getting into the neighborhoods and getting to where people live. And so in Reston right now, we kind of have a combination of that. And my guess is we'll probably have a combination of some kind in the future. But they are trade-offs that we need to look at and discuss with the community. There are also some evaluation concepts, which you see there in the middle, looking at things like density. Obviously, the more dense an area, the easier it is to serve with transit, but that doesn't mean that you can't have transit where there isn't as much density. Walkability to those bus stops, to the major activity centers is important. How the route operates. Clearly, it's more efficient to stay on the main roadway, but there are reasons for deviations. And so we'll be talking about that. And then clearly proximity, the closer you have destinations, oftentimes is more successful, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't have a route running from Reston down to Fair Oaks Mall or something like that, even those destinations may not be that close. So we'll be trying to synthesize all of that and put together a recommendation for your review. Really what we're looking for tonight is just help us get the word out. We definitely want to have the outreach efforts well attended. If people aren't able to participate in either of those meetings, we do have an online survey that we would encourage everybody to take. We want to hear some of the key issues that the Reston Association Board has with the existing service or things that we should definitely make sure that we're covering as we go forward. If you have any suggestions, we definitely welcome those and any other input that you might have. Just in more detail, the survey was kicked off on January 9th. It will be open till February 15th, so there's still plenty of time to take the survey after people put in their petition for the Reston Association Board election. They can take the survey. And as I mentioned, there's 2 community meetings. The first one, it says Reston Community Center, but that's the Lake Ann Community Center, this Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. and then Herndon Middle School on Tuesday. You're welcome to join us for either one or both of those. The survey is available at fairfaxconnector.com. And as I mentioned, this public input will be very critical in trying to shape the future transit service here in Reston. We will be looking at existing service patterns, existing service as well as future travel patterns. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions that the board would have.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Does anyone have any questions? All right, John.
Tom, I'm wondering, so we will very shortly be done with these community outreach sessions, but you're going to try to do the draft plan in April. For those who are just learning of this, it doesn't give much time for reflection. And so I'm wondering, so for example, we have a multimodal transportation committee, and I'm sure we're going to get, that's going to be a topic of intense scrutiny for that group.
Sure.
That there will not be a problem funneling that into the process, or that of similar groups that want to deliberate more before they respond.
Not at all.
Okay.
So we're taking all comments up through February 15th. So however people want to get those to us, if they're not able to come to the meeting, they can fill out the survey. If they have other things in addition to the survey that you want to submit to us, we'll take them whichever way you want to send them. If you want to write a letter, if you want to write an email, we'll take them in any way that people would like to provide them.
I'm sorry, did you say February 13th or 15th?
15th.
15th. That could be rather tight for our multimodal transportation committee. I mean, we will try to address it, I'm sure, at our next meeting, but just to let you know, we may not be able to make that schedule.
Okay. If you need more time, let us know and we'll work with you.
Yeah, we do have, as Director Mooney describes it, we have the Multimodal Transportation Advisory Committee advising us as a board on, transportation issues. John is our liaison to that, and we certainly would like that team, to review
Sure.
what's going on and input into your task force. Any other?
We welcome
Julie?
that input.
Julie.
I have a question about the input that you're seeking. I'm reflecting that some folks had commented to me over the last number of years that the bus stops don't have any cover on them, so they're standing out in the rain while they're waiting for a bus to come. Is that an area that you would anticipate people could comment on as part of their public input?
Sure. If there are places that people would like to have bus shelters, we would like to know that. We do install about 60 new bus shelters countywide every year, but if there are locations that people want us to consider, then yes, please submit those to us.
My second question, I don't have any reason why I think this,
Okay.
but not all of the bus stops are where there are sidewalks to get to the bus stops. Am I correct about that?
Unfortunately, I'm sure that you're correct.
Right. So that would also be an area that people might wish to comment on when
Sure.
we hear about the fact that there's no sidewalks for people to walk within our community.
And we do have a robust program to try and retrofit areas where they don't have sidewalks. I think we have a number of those projects going on in Reston. But if there are areas where people need those sidewalk connections, we would want to hear that as well.
Thank you.
Larry.
Julie, I can attest to the program for the bus stops, because they, oftentimes they have to come to us for easements and so forth. And there are probably 2.5 miles of county sidewalk projects right now, South Lakes, Sunrise Valley, a couple places, including out in front of here. And what I've seen on the preliminary plans on those, they're incorporating, if there's an existing bus stop, they also improve and integrate the pads as well. Not necessarily shelters, that's kind of a different animal, but they do accommodate that. But the question I had, Tom, is, and I want to give Tom credit, he was there till the bitter end last night, so.
Yeah, he
Yes.
was.
Yes.
As
So,
was Larry and others.
Since you've been taking information in already, are there any let's call them nuggets that you can share with us of things that you've heard already from the Reston Herndon area?
I'm going to have to ask Robin and Michael if they've picked up anything yet that is definitive that we want to share.
Any comments at this time on data, raw data from our system? No public comment to date.
Okay.
How have you guys
So
been
the-
reaching out to people? How do people know about this?
So we have a number of ways that we do that. We have just the regular news releases that go out, but we also have our Facebook and Twitter feeds. We have been working with our Neighborhood and Community Services Department, and so they have been very helpful in preparing for the public outreach meetings this weekend and on Tuesday. And we also maintain a customer database, and so we'll send things out to them as well. Robin, there's, I think, some other efforts. Do you want to come up and talk about those?
Well, she's doing that, I mean, Hank and Larry, I know tomorrow is Friday, but is there any way to get the information about the public meetings in the RA News or anything? Or it's tomorrow morning already, I know.
I think Mike might have been in there 2
Was
weeks
it-
ago,
It was already in there?
pretty sure.
Okay.
We'll verify that, but yeah.
If
It
we
might be a
could
little
stick
late
it,
for
if we
tomorrow
could stick it in
morning,
there
but-
again, tomorrow,
Yeah.
that would be great. I mean,
And you all are on our news release list, so as soon as it goes out, you receive that. We've also worked with about 100 community organizations in Herndon and Reston, including Cornerstones, Chambers of Commerce, to get the word out. We met with the Herndon Town Council to handle Herndon and to get the word out there. So we have been working, and we're making presentations at some of those other locations to prepare for these meetings.
I just also, just a
so,
bit of curiosity.
Mike, I know we had just talked about possibly just making sure that this information on the public meetings is out. So I don't know if you could speak to how Reston Association is getting that out.
Yeah, and actually, if you saw last week's RA News, we actually had a blurb in RA News last week promoting both the local meetings and also a link to the online survey. We also received the flyers in the last couple of days. We shared that with some of our partners, including Southgate Community Center, because we had them in both English and Spanish versions. So we've kind of pushed them out, and we've done some promotion ourselves to hopefully encourage feedback from the community.
Great. Can we get it back? Is it going to be in RA News again tomorrow?
I don't believe it's in tomorrow because we have a pretty full issue tomorrow, but it was in last Friday's.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right? Thanks.
When there's one more Friday before
Right.
we hit the 15th.
Right, we can
so maybe
refresh it next
time.
Friday. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
We appreciate that.
Thanks,
I
Tom.
have a curiosity question. Do these buses, are they wheelchair accessible?
Yes, all of our buses,
All of
100% are wheelchair accessible.
And some are bike accessible as well, right?
100% are also bike accessible.
100%.
So you can,
100%.
you can put your bike on the front of the
Can't really
bus.
fight with that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I've got just a couple things. So I saw Kiss and Ride on the south side of the tollway
Yes.
at Town Center. So
Yes.
you're finally looking out after us who live on the south side.
There'll be a
So
kiss
thank
and
you.
ride off of Edmund Haley Drive on the south side, and then there'll also be a kiss and ride off of Sunset Hills on the north side.
All right. Okay,
Big
wonderful.
Big time in South Reston.
Yeah, we hoped for that. We hoped for that at Wheelie. Didn't quite get there, but now,
Well, we're not done there yet.
we're not done there yet. Okay.
We have an impromptu kiss and ride right outside the gates at Centennial
I'm
Park.
afraid we
Going
do
to
have an
Wheelie.
impromptu kiss and ride there, but we don't have an official one.
Stop all the kissing, just get out of the
I got it.
Exactly, just ride.
All right,
Get
and
out.
could you talk for a second, for the South Reston Park and Ride,
Yes.
that's at Reston Parkway and Lawyers? Is any, certainly a lot of buses there, people parking, is any thoughts on that with this, or anything changes in your mind, or?
I think it could change significantly. Right now, there's service there up to the Wheelie Station, but it's probably closer to get to the Reston Town Center station. So, one option might be to run the bus, from there up to the Edmund Haley Kiss and Ride area, because there will be bus bays on both sides as well. So, but that's really that's where we want to go with this, is what changes do we need to make? What neighborhoods do we need to hit that we haven't hit? What neighborhoods do we want to make sure we continue to provide service to? If there are destinations from Reston South that people would like to get to, those are the things that we want to hear and we want to try and synthesize and use to craft the new service. So everything is on the table at this point.
With that, early in the days of Reston, the bus that would go from Reston all the way into DC had a drinks cart.
Yes.
Is that also on the table to have that come back?
We'll take that as a suggestion and we'll
All in favor?
take a look.
Okay.
We can make a motion.
All right, sorry for a little bit tongue in cheek there, but I thought maybe a little levity, so thank you though.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tom? Thank you so much. This is hugely important for Reston, so the fact that you availed yourself to us, we really appreciate. So thank you, and please, our MTAC group, if it's so important, as John said, to have them be able to understand what's going on and then give you some, important good feedback. So if that can be done by the 15th, John, obviously will be. If it needs to be a little bit afterwards, Tom, I appreciate
We'll
you
make that happen.
giving us the little bit of leeway.
If you would like us to come out and make a presentation to the group, we're happy to do that.
Thank you,
Just
Tom.
let us know and we'll make that happen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well for your time, and I know you have another agenda item that you probably don't want me to be here for, so I think I'll.
No, please sit. Please sit. I know, Rob,
No
we've
drama,
had
it's
you
fine.
already.
May I ask a question?
One question, Rob. One question, and that's it. And we'll do one question. It has to be a quick question,
Six
Rob.
parts.
Given the change in, coming of, I'm going to say driverless vehicles, but whatever, autonomous vehicles, thank you, I was trying to think of the word. I had asked Tom 18 months ago about the possibility of having some computer demand-based service to cover the areas not covered by the main bus routes. Thinking, I worked 10 plus years ago for Reston Limo and drove the 15 passenger vans, various locations. And so I understand how they work, and I think there's opportunities that the county should consider, possibly with private operation. Ford has an operation in San Francisco and Seattle and elsewhere. I forgot what it's called. It's called Chariot, okay, Ford Motor Company.
So, Rob, is your question,
So
are
I
we
asked-
looking at more than just the traditional
present.
bus into
Exactly.
the next generation?
So in
Is
other
that
words-
fair game for this discussion, Tom, or is that the future?
So I did ask Tom about this a year ago, so he knows about it.
Okay, well, good,
So,
good question. I didn't think
good
about
news
that.
on that front.
Thanks, Rob.
We have procured a consultant to help us look at some of those alternative service delivery concepts. So Michael and his team are working on a study to look at that. In addition to that, the board just approved on Tuesday a grant application to the state for an autonomous shuttle in the Merrifield area. So we are looking at some of those different concepts, demand responsive type things as opposed to fixed route. I think we will see some of those rolled into this concept, but probably a little more study is needed on a few of them before they see the light of day, but we are working on that.
Great.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, interesting. We want to be towards the forefront, but
Absolutely.
not to the
Not the
bleeding
bleeding
edge.
edge,
Not the
just
bleeding
the
edge, just the
leading.
leading edge.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Let's let Merrifield do the bleeding, we'll just do the leading. That's again a joke, Merrifield.
Right.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you as well.
And if you want to stay for this next agenda item, you're welcome to.
I'm sure you would probably have better discussion about it.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. We're going to go on to our next agenda item, letter F, which is the PRC zoning ordinance amendment. How we're going to start that is Larry Butler is going to kind of give an overview of kind of the subject and from last night's meeting, and then others I know are hoping to share from their experiences over the last evenings or couple of evenings and weeks that we've been working on this. So Larry, could you kick us off?
Happy to. So we've discussed this issue at length over a long period of time, and I'm not going to go into too much of the history. I think more importantly is kind of where do we go from here. And I know there were a number of people here and in the room that were there last night. And after the board authorized the advertisement in early December for the public hearing, That public hearing was conducted last night. I was down in the front, but I think it was a full house. It wasn't full, it was very, very close to full of the 375-seat auditorium. A lot of
Larry,
yellow
there were
shirts.
actually 11 who were directed to the outside overflow room by the staff directing traffic.
Okay,
So it was.
good. So
Full
we'll
house.
call it a full house. And which was a really good showing, I think, for the Reston community. There were, I think, 27 speakers that signed up ahead of time, and the individuals had 5 minutes, and the organization representatives had 10. I will say that the 8 speakers that we worked with Sherry and Director Mooney and CPR and so forth, I thought it was very well received. It was very well orchestrated, very organized. And I think everybody pretty much kept to their time as well. And I want to give kudos to Director Mooney, who I think went only 10 seconds over. The red light went on and he said one more sentence. And I mean, I think folks I was sitting with were like, he rocked it. You know? So,
I don't understand the surprise.
so, but you know, I think the conversation last night, there were a lot of questions from the commissioners, particularly Commissioner Hart, who's taken the lead on this. A few from Commissioner Carter and Cortina, and you know, a lot of it focused really back on the numbers. I mean that was the part that I presented, but quite frankly, they were mentioned a lot beforehand. They were still talked about afterwards, and you know, I had a pretty good sense of where it ended up. I mean, obviously they deferred it, which I think everybody anticipated. The Planning Commission rarely, particularly with a crowd like that and a subject like that, you know, makes a decision on the spot. And so they have deferred this to February 13th, which is not one of the dates they had reserved for additional hearings. And so I certainly want to encourage as many people to be out at 7:30 on February 13th to attend that session as well.
In yellow shirts.
Whatever color shirt you want, but yep, yellow I think is the preferred for many. I do not know the specifics of that meeting yet, if that is a public hearing opportunity or it's just when the commission is going to take it back up and discuss it amongst themselves. We can certainly ask Commissioner Carter about that, kind of what that format is. I think that's that's certainly a next step for us to pursue. But I think it's going to be really important to have people out, and maintain the strong interest that was showed last night, because I think the commission was, I'll use the word impressed with the number of people that were there and the number of people that spoke. Their goal was to end the meeting at midnight, and we actually got through all the speakers, at least people who, even the three-minuters who said, yeah, I want to speak, who came down after the signed-up speakers. And so it commenced, and finished at 11:55 or something. But again, I think it was a really good showing and some really thoughtful questions. And I think the most important takeaway that I got is that I got a sense from the questions that the commission asked that they still have a lot of questions.
It's an important observation.
Yeah, I got that too.
So that's my sort of overview, and there were others that were there, so please chime in.
All right, thank you very much, Larry. Others who want to speak, Sherry, I know you were hoping to speak.
No, I think Larry summed it up pretty well. I do think it was interesting to watch the body language and the questions, especially Commissioner Hart, who kept asking the same question asked me, and I deferred to Larry, and then I deferred to Larry again, and all the hard questions had to go to Larry. I only got the soft ones. So, but in the beginning, he kept pushing forward. Well, what do you think the number should be? What do you think the number should be? And so that to me said that he doesn't even, to your point, I think they want more information. So from that, what I took, and I know that CPR and all the Reston communities groups are going to be trying to work the different commissioners based on their questions, because you could sort of tell based on their questions sort of where their in was, like what their passion was. And the one lady who was on the far right with the dark hair, she had an interesting perspective on the PRC versus PRM, and And of course, our own commissioner asked a lot of great questions. So there's still some work to do, I think, behind the scenes. And Larry, I'm sure you'll be knocking on people's doors. And certainly, I know Tammy and Terry and the gang, John, your cohorts in crime there. I know they're already, I saw them schmoozing already that night, at midnight last night. So I will tell you that who's the chair?
Pete Murphy?
He said, he goes, I know why you guys pick yellow, because when you look out there, you just look like sunshine. And I said, you're absolutely right. We are just rays of sunshine, just here to brighten your day. And so I thought that was just interesting. He didn't have to say anything like that. So it's just interesting that that was an observation he made. And I said, I didn't think that's why we picked yellow, but we're going to go with that from now on. That that's why we picked yellow. So again, I agree with Larry that it was very well done. The choreography of it all was clear. There was some people, that spoke that just frustrated me, but that's just who I am. I just get really upset with people that like to quote Bob Simon, who probably never met Bob Simon, and there's a lot of that going on nowadays. But I mean, what a great turnout by Restonians. We need to give a big shout out to all the people that showed up on a cold, kind of rainy night and wore their yellow and just showed up. And that's really sometimes all you have to do is just show up. You don't have to speak. You don't have to do anything. Just be there. And so I appreciate all the Restonians that came out to support the effort.
Indeed.
Is your sense, the three of you, that this is genuinely not a settled question by a majority of the panel?
Absolutely.
I don't think it's
Okay.
settled.
Absolutely.
All right, that's important.
Well, they brought up the
Yeah.
part about recoupling back planning and zoning. That was their thing. So we brought that up a couple different times in our
It's novel.
different moments. They broke it and they know they have to fix it. They know it's a mess. And they brought that up. And
Hart
so
brought that up.
Hart brought that up in his
Right
opening
at the very
comments.
beginning,
Amen.
yeah.
And so if nothing else, if that can be what we stand on, and he brought it up and he said it maybe one other time. He
Because
didn't,
they said it worked in Tyson's.
he said it at the end, he was even saying that. So, I think there's so much unsettled right now and questions that haven't been answered. I can't see how they could move
It's
move
become very
forward.
slapdash, and a lot of the kind of governing documents and principles have become unconnected to each other.
Yeah, my
Counsel,
only-
you have
I-
a statement.
I watched it, I didn't attend because
You didn't have a yellow
All the way to
shirt.
the
I didn't
end.
have a yellow shirt.
This is a smart
And,
man.
and it was Paw Patrol night.
I know where you can find one.
But I thought it was very telling in the opening remarks by, I believe it was Hart,
Yeah.
that there was this preconceived notion that Fairfax had made up its mind. And he made it very clear, we're individuals, we have not made up our mind. I want to go on record and say that, we want to hear the testimony, and he didn't have to say that. He didn't have to assuage the fears. If this was a done deal, they would have given you lip service and said, come on, let's. So I think that was huge for us.
Yeah.
John, do you
Yes.
want to extol your thoughts for us?
I agree with everything that has been said so far, and I want to take up two main points. One is mentioned by Tony, that this, and others, the insistence of Hart and Commissioner Carter and others over this whole process on the error in decoupling planning and zoning in this matter. So decoupling the formulation of the Reston Master Plan in 2014 and 15, and now in 2019 trying to deal with the companion DRC ordinance. And he said this was wrong, and we have to try to recouple. And secondly, it's been clear at the workshop and also conversations we've had with commissioners in between that they're really looking for a creative solution that doesn't simply kick the can down the road, but really will solve it in a stable and durable way. And thirdly, in that connection, both at the workshop and last night, Commissioner Hart, who, by the way, is the floor manager for this, he's not the chairman of the Planning Commission, but kind of the floor manager for this issue, kept asking everyone or not everyone who spoke, but many who spoke about how they saw the limited protection afforded by the PRC cap. Now, we have fought, and rightly so, to maintain the PRC cap, because to increase it would give a legal entitlement to a ceiling of additional density for which all the developers could vie. So we're right in fighting that. But Hart and others have rightly pointed out that sometimes we may overestimate the legal protection given to us by this PRC cap, because developers may seek to develop under other zoning designations. And so I believe Hart and the other commissioners are struggling to find some creative way to find a new way, a new creative way to do this. And I think that's important.
Okay. Anyone else?
The only thing I would add, and I don't know how we handle it, but, you know, the only place the commissioners have to really go is staff, right? We're gonna ask the staff to get that, we're gonna ask the staff to do that. Well, that's the same staff that produced this stuff in the first place. And so that would be my biggest concern. If the staff is who they're going to get clarification from, what's that clarification gonna look like? And so how do we stay engaged with, and I guess we can stay engaged with John Carter.
I think that's the correct approach.
Yeah, I just, whenever I heard, well, we'll get staff, can you clarify that for us? I'm like, huh, they're the ones that created that in the first place. So that's the only, I was a little uneasy. I mean, that's of course what they're gonna do, because that's what they have to do, but how do we help in clarification as well? And I guess it's through John that we would do that.
I think that, and that's, Director Mooney and I have worked directly with him on a couple of occasions recently about some of the specifics before the hearing. And I think that's the route we take as well, try to get the information to him, which he can then share directly and discuss directly with the other commissioners if he feels it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Indeed, the working group of, a collective working group of RA, several of us from RA who've immersed ourselves in these issues, and people from Coalition for a Plan Reston, which is a combination of Reston 2020, Reston Citizens Association, and Reclaim Reston. Indeed, we've been working on these technical issues, and the paper's presentations last night were indeed to counter some of the errors that we have seen. So we continue to work not just on people power, but analytical power on these issues.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say, for show and tell, this is the packet we gave to all the commissioners last night. There's an intro and kind of a mission, and then the 8 different pieces of testimony. So this was a good call, and so they've got it. It's bound, it's organized, and they can refer to it.
So, as I discussed at my opening remarks, due to family emergency, I was not able to be there, but I was able to turn on the live streaming for a little bit last night, and I saw some of it on the live stream as I was in Chicago, and I thought, I did not make it in time for your talk, Sherry.
All right.
I did see John and Larry, and I stayed there for several more. One thing that made me feel good also was all the hard work leading up to that, especially the things like the letter that we created that talked about the inconsistency of the current numbers, the lack of detail on any type of new or approved projects that were pushing an imminent change to this in terms of needing more development, and the coupling of planning and the ordinance. All those things seem to keep coming up again, and so the things we had stated before in our letters were being, supported by, good dialogue last night from many sides. So I think that the consistency of the arguments, there were no holes put in those arguments. And again, I found it interesting to watch, again, that, again, when people talk about supporting the plan, and again, hey, we need to do this ordinance to support the plan, when in my mind, we need to defeat the amendment to support the plan. So the same thing where we have people talk about the plan, and the plan at a very high level, and it's much more detailed and much more, there's so much to it that I'm gonna raise it to a super high level, but the plan basically says we're gonna create an urban corridor in the transit station areas. And that, and the balance of Reston, again, high level, north of Sunset Hills, south of Sunrise, the existing neighborhoods stay primarily as is in terms of development. At the highest level, I know we've got village centers and other things to deal with, but at the highest level, that's what it says. And then to hear people say, oh, well, don't look back and no development. Well, no one's saying that. The PRC is only dealing primarily at a high level with the north of Sunset Hills, south of Sunrise Valley, as is neighborhoods. And so there's a lot of development and a lot of things going on to create that urban corridor that everyone's trying to do to make it go well and make it work. But this amendment has nothing to do with that. This amendment has to do with the PRC portion, the non-TSA portion. But even these experts or people testifying last night were seeming to jumble all that up in their commentary, and it's just a complex topic. And again, appreciate all of your work, all of CPR's work, to make sure that reasonable facts get out on the table, reasonable questions, and then push it. I wanted to ask Larry your thoughts, and then Julie can come to you. But next steps, if there's a meeting on the 13th, what are reasonable next steps? I know you and Sridhar and John and I have gotten together on meetings with different teams, and we've written letters. And what are reasonable next steps that you would suggest for us to keep involved?
I think the first thing is, perhaps John and I kind of taking a lead on part of this. We get in contact with John Carter, and I'd like to get a sense of how that meeting on the 13th will be. Is it going to be one item of many? Is it a somewhat dedicated meeting? And and kind of get a sense from him what his expectations are from that meeting. And I think that may help guide us. I'm hoping he, feel free to share that kind of information. I think other than that, I think we just have to, and I know CPR and others are planning to do this, was to contact Hart and other individual commission members and try to get their pulse in some way. I don't know those people individually. I've talked to Hart a couple times, but I think we need to keep that sort of contact going. We don't want to say, okay, hey, they showed up at the hearing, now we're resting. That's not the way we can approach it. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts, John?
No, I agree. Finding out what they hope to do at the 13th meeting will be very important. I think they're trying for some sort of new synthesis, is my view, of all the issues. And so we'll see what happens. And I have to say, I found both in the work session and last night, Commissioner Hart genuinely, he really understands the issues, and he wants to be, and in his heart is an honest broker. I really believe that.
I'll do a quick shout out to one of the commissioners as well. Commissioner Mary Cortina rang me on last Thursday in the morning, or last Thursday or Friday morning, and just out of the blue, and we chatted what I thought was going to be a 5-minute conversation. We had about an hour-long conversation on this topic, where I tried to walk through our letter that we had written, the topics that I mentioned earlier, and she just was in a fact-finding, learning mode, listened, asked some really great questions, and so, I mean, it seems like the commission is really taking their job seriously and trying to really understand things. So again, hats off to them for that.
And other commissioners whom we could mention, but Mary's been very straightforward.
Was she the dark-haired woman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so my comment really has to do with what seemed to be a debate between her and Hart as to, and I won't get terms right, but PRC versus
PRM.
PRM and being able to exit out.
Yeah.
And I was getting the sense that Hart was thinking that you know, you just ask and you get, as opposed to ask and it has to be approved. And that really concerned me, that I felt that we really needed to understand completely what the legalities are of that in and out. And I think any out is a really bad thing. I know you tried to answer one of his questions on if they're in the covenants, if the deed says they're in, they're in.
Right. Yeah,
But,
he pressed Sherry on that and me as well.
But I
And-
think
and I
we need to
kinda
take a
turned-
position on that as part of.
Yeah, they were debating that.
And I liked what she had to say, that no, you know, the comprehensive plan really was the point of making the PRC and making a point about the uniqueness and recognizing that of Reston by creating our own PRC.
Well, wasn't that what John Farrell was trying to address with, is this an administrative versus, is that what he said, administrative versus legal?
Or
It's a
administrative.
slightly different
Yeah, it's
issue.
a little different.
Oh, it's different?
So it's whether or not plan amendments can be granted, what does the Fairfax County zoning ordinance actually say? Whether plan amendments are granted ministerially, that is by staff, or by a legislative action of the board. And the circuit court in the case of Reston National said it was a legislative act. And, but some still dispute that. So
That's what he
that's
said.
one issue. This issue is, and the disagreement with Hart and Mary, Commissioner Hart and Cortina, it's complicated, and it gets into some legal questions
Right.
about if you hit a cap and you have property that you want to develop
Right.
in a property rights state like
yes.
Fairfax, what
Yes.
options do you have? And in fact, they do have options because it is such a property rights state.
Yeah, and I brought up the Woodfield property in my comments back to the commission last night, because they initially came in at PRM, this is the Roland Clark piece.
Yeah.
And then they got pushed back, and, you know, so I kind of turned around and questioned the staff, because I don't know where that pushback came from. It came from the supervisor's office, you know, a meeting with a planning commissioner, or the staff. But, you know, somebody in the county said, no, you really need to file this PRC, not PRM. So I don't know, you know, who that actual point person was, but somebody said, you know, you're not going to get it if you come in PRA. You need to stay in the PRC. So there's some, you know, I don't want to go say it's a strong precedent, but somebody inside the county recognizes the importance of the PRC,
Right.
at least in that very recent case. You know, push came to shove, and they kept it in the PRC.
And again, at the end of the day, it seems, again, without solid numbers of right exactly where we are now, without specific detail on projects in the pipeline that are gonna push us over, even though we don't know where we are right now, hard to really even get to that next part of the argument about PRC versus PRM when we don't even know, well, are we pushing the PRC number? You know, and how does that, you know,
Even the question of pipeline, right? You know, things that have been approved, but there's no shovel. You know, is it really a pipeline, or is it just, you know, a placeholder?
And there's a lot of details where we could talk at
Yeah.
length about village centers. We could talk about Reston Town Center North, you know, for ideas. And all sorts of nuances of, does that get pulled out, that itself get pulled out of the PRC just so that can be developed and it doesn't really affect too much of the acreage or whatever. I mean, there's so many ideas that float around that I think are possibilities. So without, I don't think, needing a motion, because we can continue with our previous motions on moving forward this, and Cheryl will be right there. I think this board is talking about continuing, you know, entering in and making sure that we are engaged and working through to make sure we're working with the commissioners, et cetera, to make sure that they understand our points and that we understand theirs. I think that can go without a motion.
Along
Sherry?
that line,
Yes.
is it appropriate that one or two of this board reach out to the individual commissioners to just make ourselves available to chat, if they would like to chat with a member of the Reston Association, or those of y'all that are really knowledgeable about it. I mean,
I wouldn't see a problem with
The
that.
nice part is they're seemingly coming, coming
well,
to
you already have,
us.
somebody came to you, but
They're already doing it. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, certainly,
it says something if, like, our board president would reach out. I'm
Yeah.
not saying to all of them, but maybe John or.
why don't I go to, I'll say that I can give John Carter a ring just to see how, as a commissioner, the best way to make sure that his
What would
fellow
be- what
commissioners
would be
know that
appropriate?
this is available.
Well, because like there's one gentleman said nothing. The one on the far left.
There were a few
far
that who
left.
said no.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is it because what? So I mean, just reaching out to saying, so I was at the meeting and I wanted to make myself available. Did you have any questions as from an RA perspective? That I can maybe answer, or is there any information I could get for you? I mean, I'm happy to reach out to anybody either. But I'll wait for a lead from you if you
Okay.
want that.
Why don't I, I'll, take the action to talk to John Carter about how he would suggest we communicate with his fellow commissioners, and then we'll be back in touch.
Okay.
Because it would make sense to make sure there are several of us able to do
Yeah,
that.
I'm thinking more of us pushing than asking them to pull us.
All right.
Going to them saying, we're here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Larry?
And one follow-up.
And I know the
General-
answer to that question
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and Kathy, I know has a question, because
So,
Larry, we'll go Larry, and then we'll go Kathy.
Council reminded me, so we had decided to do a social media push, which we've done. You did videos and so forth. So I presume we want to continue that. I'm not sure what the message is exactly. Maybe you'll know more after you talk to John Carter, but certainly about the February 13th meetings. But we don't have a lot of meat around that yet. But is it the board's intent to continue that push as information becomes available?
I would say absolutely.
I think nothing's changed. Yeah, I think we continue.
I think we continue to educate our members so that they can also have a voice.
Kathy, you had something, and then I'm going to go to Tony.
So I just wanted to say that I watched both the work session from a couple of weeks ago and last night's session. And I love Sherry's sense of humor in contrast with John's very seriousness. But I detected a very subtle shift in thinking on the part of the commissioners. And I thought that they were much more strong about the lack of understanding of numbers. And I think that what we have done with the media push to keep everyone informed about all of the various meetings, Andy, your public service announcements have been very worthwhile, and I would agree that we should continue doing those to make sure that our members are informed about what is going on.
Okay. Thank you. Tony, you had your hand up as well?
Well, I'm certainly not the communications guy, but it seems to me that you're fighting a battle to keep people involved. We discussed this when I sat at the last meeting with CPR, where Tammy made it very clear you can only get people out at certain times. So I don't think that you can continue with the same social media. I think you have to gradually ramp up to the March date when this is the battle. The war is obviously when it goes back to the Board of Supervisors. So it needs to be, from where I'm sitting, more social media, more engagement to keep that level of interest. Otherwise, people are just going to start to forget about this and get burned out.
Yeah.
And so it might be worth having a meeting with Mike to get his ideas on it, like, are we keeping the same intensity, the same fire, or is there a better PR way to approach this?
As a graduated way to
That's why we
work
have
on
Hank.
this. Yeah. Okay.
We'll look into it.
All right.
Take care of it.
So thanks, Hank. So yeah, I think if we leave it with Hank and Mike to help us kind of chart that strategy. Thank you. All right. Is there anything else, or can we move on to the next agenda item?
Mosaic.
Hearing none, we're going to move on to, thank you so much again for everyone's work on
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna
And
start talking about
whatever happens, people will be engaged and informed on this topic. And we appreciate that. All right, so let's get to item G, the treasurer's report.
Andy?
Yes.
I'm signing off.
All right, thank you, Kathy.
I'm leaving.
I have important numbers. I mean,
I'm
0,
looking
1,
forward
2,
to
3,
hearing.
You have important numbers, and
in
I'm
various
afraid
order.
Director Bauman, Director Hebert think your numbers will be important in the minutes.
Aaron, I have full faith that we have plenty of money.
Amen, we do.
All right, thank you, Sherry.
Is this what
And
you want?
Thank you, Kathy. Bye-bye.
Or do you want the dashboard piece?
Can I get the, let me get the one that's cash as of December,
You got it.
and then summary of collections is the next one I want to go to.
Okay.
So I would just be very brief with this, right? Fiscal committee meets on Monday, and we're gonna look at what we have for 2018 financials that's available to us. And we're gonna do it in a little more detail. What I want to use my forum here for tonight is to talk about assessments in light of the shutdown. One of the things we talked about when we set our budget for next year was, if something bad happened, right, and, I don't think we anticipated exactly a shutdown, but if something happened of 30-some days and counting, if something bad happened, what level of cushion, right? We had a discussion about that orange box there about, what level of cushion to estimate and what we could expect. We made a change last year. We started sending the invoices out on 5 December, and we got a lot more money in doing so, whereas the previous years you see 16, 15, 14, 13 was sent out on 15 December. So we didn't know what to make of that this year. And so we picked a number. Fiscal committee settled on picking the lowest number to use as our projection because we're all about fiscal conservatism. And so we did that. So the number we came in at, right, is 2.27 million. That, if you look at the 31 December 17 number, so we're about 300,000 short in December from where we were last year, given the same billing cycle. It's hard to know if that's shutdown related. I think it's possible that it is. I want to go to that second document, that summary of collections, and we'll talk a little more about that. So this is January 1 to 26. So hold that 300,000 number in your head a moment. So this is January 1 through 22nd. We're in good shape, but it's really thanks to the apartments. We're on houses, we're down about 100,000, and we're down on installment plans. My guess, only a guess, is I mean, a lot of people are just playing wait and see with the feds.
Because technically, you don't go into
Till
late
March, till 1 March, right? And so
you still have some time to decide if you have to go to
right,
an installment.
to whether you need an installment plan, so they're not pulling the trigger on that, and they're also just not paying yet.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So I haven't paid my assessment because when I went in to pay, I saw the note where it said you had to pay the credit card fees. And then when I went through the process, it didn't really until the last step, it didn't even actually tell me what was a breakdown on what that percentage would be as to what it would charge me. So what I mean to say is that it did not quite tell me what that percentage, what that fee would be. Now break it down, it just told me that
Right.
$693. And so if I had hit submit, I believe what would have happened is it would have charged me $693 plus the percentage. So I canceled out of it.
Right.
And I did not see any of the option to pay, which is pretty much, I think the other option for me, and for somebody having been through all these discussions, to me it was not very clear. So I guess the other option for me is to actually bring in the check. And I don't remember the last time I wrote a
Right.
paper check and mailed it, so.
Yeah,
I
you and me-
think,
you and
I
me
don't know
both.
if that is also a reason why there's, people are.
So wait, Eric, Larry has his hand up, so can we just ask?
So
And then we'll go back.
there are no credit card fees on the assessment payment.
Right.
And that's why you didn't see it. If you recall back to our December board meeting, where we said we weren't comfortable implementing that.
Right,
And
so we move money forward.
Correct. So there is no, had you clicked it through and paid it, we would have paid your credit. We, the association, would have paid your credit card fee for you.
As of January 1st, weren't we going to collect it?
Not on
No.
the assessment.
Not on the assessments, but we are on the non-assessments,
Assessments was
Okay.
next.
like pool pass.
So you
Okay,
can
so
go,
that's
you can go
fine.
right in and pay it.
Okay. All right, never mind.
We invite you to.
You can
right,
do it tonight.
Let's go on.
I'm happy to subsidize your credit card fee.
Right. But, so, I mean, my takeaway on this is, you know, we're seeing a hit. We're not seeing as bad a hit as we could have. The question for the board to keep in mind is, as this continues, and, you know, we're still in a partial shutdown today, and we will be tomorrow, we may not get, a lot of this may get kicked down the road.
Right.
I mean, if you're a non-defense, you know, federal employee, I mean, you will receive your income at some point, but it isn't going to be now. And so we need to, I don't know if we have any action at this point, but we need to have in the back of our mind that there are people in this community who may not be able to do this.
Well, and
Through
it's
no
not
fault of
just
their own.
people who are government employees.
Right,
I mean,
right. There's people who, I
it's,
mean, who.
it's the people who run a
Right.
dog sitting company and
Right.
they don't have anybody,
Right.
everybody's
Right.
canceling
It's
their dog
contract,
sitting.
it's contractors that are now being shut down. I mean, you know, it's got a lot of small businesses that are now just burning straight overhead because they can't bill in
Don't have
time.
any income.
So we need to be aware of that.
What do you think, I mean, so the installment plan line, what do you think? I mean, it seems like that would be something that people would be maybe working on more this year, and yet the numbers are down, you're saying.
I think they're down now, but and this is the, you know, just the guy with the marketing,
Yeah.
right? They're waiting, right? I think they don't want to, their pattern is I write a check in this, you know, at the new year for my assessment and it's done. They don't want to do this, whether it's a pride thing or whether it's a routine thing. And they may just be waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we should look for as we go into February is, does that number
What's the
come up?
trend?
Does that number come up beyond where it was last year? And if it doesn't significantly, I would think that some people have been opting, let me just take the payment plan anyway. There may be more people who simply say, they're gonna just have to wait. And that's something that, you know, this time next month, I want us to look at these numbers again, and we may have to have a conversation as a board when we do it, if we've got a serious gap there.
Right.
And I mean, from a financial perspective, we'll be okay, the apartments, I mean, will carry us for a couple of months. But from a caring about our community perspective as well, we may need to think about how we address this.
Is that something that the committee's gonna look at next Monday, is kind of get a, you know, a
We're,
timeline on?
there's a lot of gaps right now,
Thinking
right?
about that, when do
we're-
we need the money? Because I see Chris sitting there, and
We
he's gonna
can-
ask us for money.
We can, I mean, we can look at that. I mean, we can certainly have staff do, you know, do just a straight line projection about when we, you know, do we run out of cash at some point?
I know that was a question I had kind of
Yeah,
poked on
Yeah.
the other week, but, and I thought we got a good answer from Tom, but
I mean, so far, year-to-date, we've had good collections. Only last year have we had better collections. The previous 4 years prior to that, I mean, we've outperformed as far as
Yep.
collections. So, I mean, this year, I would say is almost a banner year equal to 2018.
right,
Great.
yeah.
So to pare it back, what I think I heard is, you're feeling okay this month.
Yeah.
We're gonna look from where we are,
Right.
you're gonna take us through this next month, and if we have a big dip, maybe because of the shutdown or something else, you'll have some ideas of discussed with
I think it's
this
fair to
committee to
Yeah.
share with us?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say.
That would be,
and the money,
that would be my suggestion, yeah.
Yeah,
and the money that we need in capital projects comes out of a different fund anyway,
that's,
so.
capital projects can go right.
so we can keep
Please
going.
dredge my lake. Yes, carry on.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, Larry,
The other
please.
thing too, maybe a good thing to report out, would just be a straight cash balance too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously we had cash at the end of the year.
Yep.
We bring in, this is a report of assessments that have come in, and then we can total those and say, here's our available, fund balance, if you will,
Right.
which carries the business.
Yep.
The bills we gotta pay.
Now, I mean, maybe because we're probably so early in the year, but eventually we need to get back to our dashboard page. And that's, with the cash balance in it, with all the rest of
Yeah.
the things. So
As soon as it
hopefully
becomes meaningful, yes, we will.
Although some pieces of it will always be meaningful, like the cash balances and things like that.
That will, yes, for
So
sure.
maybe
For sure.
even if we have that, we can watch it grow or watch it change every month as we get more meaningful data.
Right.
I think that will be helpful, the consistency.
Yeah.
I have no
But it
further
does-
questions. Does anyone else?
I
Or
have
do you have more,
questions.
Eric? No. Okay. Any have further questions?
I have a couple questions
All right.
on the cash reserves sheet. that I'm-
Can you bring that up on the
The
screen?
cash is separate, this one?
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
A couple of things I'm just not understanding, which is embarrassing since I'm an accounting person. So, first of all, on the actual side, I'm looking at the 1,149,000, and then we have the balance sheet as of December 31st, and that number didn't change.
Right, because that wouldn't have any effect on cash. When,
On projected cash.
on projected cash,
Yeah.
right. It would in the previous months because those items would have moved, but this was set static as far as what had happened at year end.
I got you. Okay, so that would affect cash in subsequent
When we
months.
project, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
we would collect the accounts receivable, we would pay the accounts payable,
Okay,
et cetera, but
that makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else, Karen?
No. I don't think so.
Ben, anything from you? You okay with?
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, thanks. We will get a further update in February when we get a little bit more
Yeah.
2019 under our belts.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you, Tom.
Right on time, ahead of time.
All right,
We can
We're
talk.
supposed to,
so we're on
Finish
to
up. 5.
item H, which is a executive discussion to discuss contractual matters with council and with Chris. So at this stage, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to go to executive session. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, Stefan, we're gonna go into executive session now, and discuss some contracts.
I love that he's down.
Stefan, are you still there?
Voice up in the.
All right, so we're gonna turn off. Okay, and we've returned to the January 24th, 2019 RA Board of Directors meeting after executive session. I'd entertain a motion from Director Mooney.
Mr. President, I move that the Reston Association Board of Directors certify to the best of each member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session of a personnel, contractual, or legal nature were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during executive session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Give a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, we have one more motion to attend to.
I move that we approve the 4 contracts that were presented to us in executive session, and also the purchase of the Vermeer chipper.
If it's okay, it was 3 contracts. that were
3
purchased.
contracts, 3, sir.
And
The 3 contracts presented to us, and the purchase of the Vermeer chipper.
Second. Oh,
Okay, we've got a second from Julie. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, the motion carries. We have another motion.
Who had the over-under on this?
Under.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Uh-oh.
Okay, do we have a second? We can discuss this.
Hold on, we can
We've
discuss.
got a second. Okay, any discussion? Karen?
This may be totally out of order, and it is something that I should have brought up when we were discussing the agenda, but it occurred to me halfway through this meeting that I wanted to sort of solicit suggestions from the board for the 55-plus advisory committee work planning session that's happening tomorrow afternoon. So I know we're a truncated board right now, but if anybody, is it kosher for me to ask this at this point?
I think at this point, we probably know. I don't know if it needs to be a board meeting.
It's just I think it's just a
So
request.
let's
from-
just have, why don't you just do some soliciting of different board members individually if there's a session tomorrow?
Yeah, what I was gonna
Okay.
recommend, Karen, is
Yeah.
I would just email the board and,
Yeah.
and make sure you put the deadline in there, that
Because
they're
we have
having
the
a meeting
same,
in 12 hours or whatever. it is.
yeah, we have the
Yeah.
same thing for
Okay.
PrAC, that as we start doing our work plans for the coming year, we thought that we should get some input.
So what are some of the deadlines for this? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow
And
at 2
prac-
o'clock, yeah.
And prac is when?
2 Mondays, the first Monday of the month.
Do you want to?
And I
I think we can
apologize,
just
I
send-
got distracted with all the
can write it down.
PRC and
Yeah,
your
okay.
situation, so.
Yeah, understood.
We can
Thank
write
you.
it down.
Well,
send
if you
everybody
could,
a note.
I think Larry's suggestion is a good one. If you could send us all an email with
Sure.
some pointed questions to focus our answers or whatever, we'll try and get them for you by tomorrow. And Julie, it sounds like you need to get us one that we could work on before your meeting in a couple of weeks. With that, any further discussion? I'd like to call the question on adjournment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. We are adjourned. Ooh, I got to use the gavel.